Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Press Play Lifestyle Inspired podcast. It's a podcast that does interviews with inspirational people like our new friend here, Merilee, as well as provides custom content on topics to help you find the resources, tools, and support you need to have your best inspired self. How are you doing today?
I'm great. I appreciate you having me.
Oh, thank you. I'm like, with everyone being so busy, I'm just so blessed that people are still trying to find time, no matter where they have to be to find that time to spend with me. So let's acknowledge for those that can't see you right now, you are in your car doing our podcast, which is super cool. So thank you for figuring out a way to make it work no matter what was coming up.
Yeah, of course. With the kids home right now, this might be the
No.
quietest week.
Yeah, you're like,
So,
I may not go back in after the podcast is done, right? I If it makes you feel better, I have 4 small humans that I'm trying not to kill at home. 6, 8, 10, and 14, and I've left the very moody 14-year-old in charge for a little while, so hopefully the house doesn't get burned down while we're on our podcast. It'll be good.
yeah, yeah. Well, and I don't know where you are, but we actually had an earthquake a couple of days ago. So, while
Oh, are you
everyone is,
in Utah? Are you in
yes,
Utah?
we're in
Oh
Salt
my
Lake
gosh.
City. So, while everyone's already on edge, now my kids are 10 times on edge. So,
Oh, I can imagine. The poor little humans. Well, hopefully they get the wiggles worked out. So
yeah.
why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself then, Merilee? Like, besides the fact that you're from Utah and the world just shook literally all around you,
Yeah.
what else would you like to share with the audience today?
So I am a certified wellness coach, and I have a background in psychology and organizational communication and cognitive behavioral therapy. Um, and my, motivation for becoming a health coach was kind of my own physical and mental health journey. And it was really about not wanting anyone else to feel stuck or as hopeless as I did, because sometimes you feel like there's no answers, but there are, and there are ways to heal, and so that's what I do and why I became a health coach.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think what I found, I literally talked to someone a little earlier today, and she became a different type of coach, but the reason she became a coach was because she had something, kind of really difficult happen in her life, and she was able to find a way to overcome that difficulty and essentially just wanted no one to ever feel that way ever again. And I think we find a lot of us in that kind of scenario. So,
Right.
can tell us a little bit about, because in a nice way, I don't know a nice way for stalking, but let's just say the nice word for stalking. I was stalking your great programs, and the name of it, Connect the Dots, was really intriguing for me. So I was wondering if you could just tell us a little bit about Connect the Dots, and if there's like anything behind the meaning of that, that would be interesting to hear about as well.
Yeah, there absolutely is, and it's because when I was going through my own stuff, I had seen so many doctors, hormone doctors, psychologists. I just had spent thousands of dollars seeing doctors, and it was like a team of people that I really needed, and it wasn't just one thing that I needed. So I really had to connect the dots of everything that was going on to fully heal. And I think sometimes that's the problem, is like we just focus on one thing. Like we focus on, a certain doctor or a certain way of healing, but sometimes we need more than one thing. And I think that's where it gets confusing and it gets feeling hopeless. And so that's where the name came from, is, you really do have to connect all the dots of your health and your well-being to fully heal.
Yeah, I love that, because I think that's super true, because sometimes healing, even if you have a physical ailment, the healing that you need to do is between the ears as much as the problem that you're struggling with. I myself, I'm actually a narcoleptic, which is very misunderstood, and it does, none of those details matter. But I thought I was really tired because I was a mom with a bunch of kids, or I thought I was having struggles because, oh, they kept telling me it's hormones or it's this. It was like literally none of those things actually, right? But it wasn't until sometimes you have to pause and say, what else is happening other than the symptom, right? What else is going on other than just although we all know how bad tired is, but just being tired. And I remember thinking forever, like, I'm so lazy. I'm so lazy. I'm always so tired. I'm like the laziest mom ever. And then my husband's like, you're like the least lazy person on the planet. Like, you're always doing stuff. But I didn't feel that way, right? I felt like I was letting everyone down. So that wasn't a healing through medicine or through the doctor that needed to happen. It was like between the ears of Jackie Schwab that needed a little support there. So is that kind of what you mean? Like there's like the healing of the whole body and all of the parts that are yelling at you right now.
Yeah, definitely. And one affects the other. So, if mentally our wellness isn't up to where we want to, it affects us physically. And physically, if we're not where we want to be, it affects us mentally. So it is healing everything to be feeling our full health and our full, wellness.
Yeah. So you said basically your own health challenges and your own struggles really led you to this passion for helping others connect the dots. Um, how do you show up that way? Like, how do you help others connect the dots in their challenges?
So, well, a little bit about my journey is that it really well, I'm sure it started like in childhood somewhere, but I really started showing up for me after my first baby. And I started getting really terrible anxiety, which I hadn't really experienced before in my life. I have a degree in psychology, so I've studied about it, but I'd never really experienced it and how terrible it could be. So that lasted for about 9 months after my first baby. But then it got better, and then I got pregnant with my second baby. And during that pregnancy, I was diagnosed with melanoma, and it was really tough to feel like I didn't know whether it was going to spread to my baby, and whether it was going to spread to me, and I wouldn't be there for my kids. And I had to wait for a little while to find out if it had spread to my baby. And it just really made me aware of all of the things that could cause cancer and could hurt my baby. And so I started getting really anxious, obviously, but I also started developing OCD. So I was having I was doing things to alleviate the stress and therefore develop the OCD, which I had never experienced at all. And I was kind of more like a lot of people are, like, pull yourself up, like change your attitude. But it wasn't that easy. And so it really flipped my life upside down, my family's life. It got so bad that I couldn't really leave the house or do, normal tasks like cook dinner or change my baby's diapers. Um, it was really debilitating. And then I became so sick that I couldn't walk up the stairs. I couldn't lift my arms above my head. And I, that's when I had seen so many doctors, and they told me, it's your hormones, or which probably contributed. And they told me, take this medication, and medications helped in their own way, but they didn't solve the problem. And I knew intuitively there was something more going on. Like, I knew that there had to be something else. Finally, after years of struggling with this, I was diagnosed with Epstein Barr and mono. So I kept getting mono over and over and over again, which I think was a huge contributor to my anxiety, because like you said, it's like, you're so hard on yourself. I'm lazy, I'm worthless. Why can't I just do this like any other normal mom? But I had a virus that nobody diagnosed for years. So I started healing that virus holistically, and not expecting it, or not the purpose of healing the virus. But my mental health got better quickly. So my anxiety started to fall away, my OCD started to fall away. I was able to manage them better as soon as I healed the virus. So it was right then that everything kind of clicked for me, that it's all so much more connected than we can imagine. So, and I don't know whether which contributed to which first, but it was a cycle. And so it made me realize how important nutrition is for our mental wellness, and which led to my study of viruses and their effect on our mental health. and our mental health's effect on viruses, which we all have viruses, whether it's Epstein Barr or shingles or um, uh, herpes simplex. Like, we all have these viruses that live in our body, and they show up in certain ways and affect us. So yeah, that's kind of my
Yeah.
story.
Yeah, I can see how that would be so that's super interesting. It's always interesting. I love other people's stories. Uh, my initial diagnosis was I had Epstein Barr virus, teeter, and so so they're like, oh, because you have that, that's what everything is. But it turns out I had something different and that, right? And so
Mhm.
we went through. It was I'm in my 40s now, but it was like a 35-year journey to finding out, no, I've always had this other thing. And I also had this happen. And then you're like, oh, I'm lazy, I'm this, I'm that. And oh, it's the food you're eating. I remember one doctor I ended up leaving 10 years. She's like, well, you wouldn't be so tired if you weren't so fat. And I was like, oh, that's helpful. Cause I feel really good about myself now. So like all this stuff kind of building on itself. And then you begin to believe what other people are telling you because you don't know. Like you don't know the answer. And
Yeah.
luckily, like I don't know if lucky or not, you find out that it's the virus piece. But I think having other people like reinforce all of your fears, saying, yeah, you're right, you are kind of lazy. Yeah, you're right, you are fat. You're right, you are a bad mom. You haven't got off the couch all day. And then it just kind of morphs into more stuff and more things in your head as well as your body. So similar journeys, at least in terms of health on this. It's not just tired, right? It's tired at a whole new level, and even your brain gets tired then, right? And then you had all those other things going on. So now that you kind of know all of that, right? This like such an amazing gift to be aware after and find a positive spin on all of that you've been through. How do you help clients, find their or connect some of their dots?
Yeah, well, and I want to say on that too, I think that's a
Sure.
huge issue for a lot of us, is that we go to these doctors who we expect to have the answers, and we are supposed to trust them, and they're supposed to know their stuff and they do know stuff. um, but to hear from doctors like, there's nothing wrong with you, everything on your blood test looks fine, like, you're fine, is really hard to hear. And then to hear from your loved ones too, what's wrong with you, it's really tough mentally. So that is something I would love for people to know, is even if someone says, everything's fine, if you're not fine, you're not fine, whether that's
Yeah.
mentally or physically, and there's something you can do about it. So
Yeah. So
um
you give people essentially. I love that. So giving people for permission to not be fine, because your
yeah,
body was telling you so loudly that something was going on, and because we couldn't figure out how to help it, it just got louder, right? And louder and louder and louder.
right, yep, your body's always telling you something, and it's something always valuable. So and that's really what I do as a coach, is I help listen to that intuition. But then there's so many things we can do. So there's so much testing you can do medically. You can get tested for viruses, you can get tested for genetic predispositions to your ability to detox. There's just so many things you can find out about your body now, which is incredible. um, and then we focus on those. So when I was diagnosed with the virus, they said there's nothing you can do, you just have to go home and rest. And I'm like, I've been
I've been
dealing with
resting for 10 years.
right. So I found a practitioner who specialized in these viruses, and we basically, before you can kill the virus, your body's already trying to get rid of the virus, your immune system, and that builds up this viral debris in your organs. And that viral debris is like this sludge that, if you can't get rid of it, that's when you start feeling these symptoms like fatigue and skin outbreaks and rashes. And that's when you start having the symptoms, mental symptoms. um, so what we have to do first is clean out the old, get out all of that viral sludge, get out all of the environmental toxins that are all around us, so that your body can handle what's coming at you. So then it can fight off the virus naturally. Then when you have stressors, your body can handle them properly. So, when you have cortisol running around your body and adrenaline and all of this stuff that's just wreaking havoc on your body, until you get rid of it, you can't handle anymore. So for me, I was, loud noises, smells, anything could cause a lot of anxiety for me because my body physically could not handle it. And I think that's something too, is a lot of times we just think it's our brain. Um, but our body has to be functioning properly uh, on a physiological level to be able to handle stress and to be able to handle anxiety. Um, so we clean out the old before we introduce the new, which is coping skills, and there are ways to kill off the virus holistically as well. Um, but it wasn't until my body was functioning properly and wholly that I could implement those coping mechanisms. I've been going to therapy for years, and the coping skills sounded great, but it was really difficult to implement them until I cleared out everything that was already there and got my hormones, my stress hormones, where they should be, and got my adrenaline down and got my adrenal glands functioning properly. And as soon as I did that, I was like, oh, I can do these. This feels fine. So that's something that we do is, clean things out on a physical level, and then work mentally with coping skills and understanding how the brain works, understanding how the neurology in our brain uh, began in the first place, and how we can rewire that, which is really exciting that we can rewire that.
Yeah. I love that. So I think two things that like I just felt called to share. One was we forget sometimes that our body is a natural organism, right? It's part of the world. And if right now, if the rest of the world is seeing this, we're all kind of, depending on timing, we're dealing with the coronavirus pieces. But an example of how healing the physical entity can have a positive effect would be if you look at Italy right now, a lot of the people are shut in. It's an awful thing. However, they're now seeing wildlife back in the city for the first time in decades, right? That there's dolphins swimming in the water. There's swans that they haven't seen in forever. There's all of this wildlife that is coming back to the earth in that area. And why? Because it was able to have a break from all the stress, physically healing from all of the things, all the stress that's been put on it, right? All these, and our bodies are the same thing. I think there's a lot of, and I myself am a coach as well. So I think a lot of times we get caught in this mindset of mindset work that if you fix your head, it'll all get better. But in your example, and in the earth is showing us right now in China, right? They turned a bunch of factories off, and now there's a whole bunch of more blue skies. Sometimes you have to deal with the physiology first before you can deal with the neurology and the mindset work and the all of these. I have a child that went through ABA for 6 years, so I've learned all this applied behavioral stuff. Great, it all is amazing, and it all has its place. Except when I'm so stressed that I'm trying not to kill all four of my kids, doesn't matter how many coping strategies I have, because I'm stressed out, and am I physically, I'm not feeling great, or whatever else is going on. So I love your whole, like, this holistic approach where even in coaching we can learn something. It is all connected. And maybe you could start with mindset work. In some cases, some people can. Maybe they're physically healthy. But if you're not physically feeling well, me telling you to go meditate for 10 minutes isn't going to cut it, right? Because everything feels broken, right? Everything needs like a flush or a detox or whatever it is that it needs. So I think that what I would say is if someone is feeling not fine and they don't know why and no one's listening, then they should give you a call, because you know what not fine feels like.
Definitely. I would love that. And my whole purpose is for people to know there is um, a way to heal, and we just have to find it. And, I've been in a place where I wanted to give up because I felt worthless and I felt ashamed and I felt there's nothing else I can do. My family would be better off without me. I'm such a burden. And I know there are so many people out there that feel that way. And it's so sad because there are so many things that we can do, but the world is telling us like the opposite, you're fine.
Right.
So yes, if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling like, I think of it like a dark box. You're in this dark box, there's a way out, but you just can't get there and you don't know the first step to take. I would love to talk to you and help you find that first step and help you find your way out of that box, because there is a way.
Oh, thank you. That's lovely. So, how can people find you to work with you? Of course, everything you share right now, we'll make sure is in the show notes so people don't have to worry and be trying to write it down and driving. That's not safe. But how could they find you if they're like, I'm not fine?
Yeah, so I have a website. It's called connectthedots.healthcoach.com. You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram. And I would love to do a free breakthrough session with you to see if we're the right fit. And if we're not, I will help you find who is. So, whether you're working with me or with somebody else, my goal is to get you the help you need, or to get you on the right track to healing and feeling back to your best self. Um, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I know this was really hard for you to get out away from the kiddos and help us be on the podcast, but keep us updated as you release programs and you release ways to help people. And I'm just super thankful that you took time with us today. So thank you very much.
I'm so grateful. I appreciate you. Thank you.
We'll see you soon. Bye bye.
Bye.